Hey there. So I wanted to make this video because I wanted to let you know that the Lamborghini that this whole entire channel is based around has been sold. And I wanted to share my thoughts with you after owning it for about 2.5 years. And really, the honest truth I have about owning a Lamborghini, and I think I had a lot of expectations going into it, but the expectations really don't meet reality. And I think it's really important to share that with you. So, I've been asked quite a lot, like what am I going to replace the car with? What's next? What's the next thing I'm going to do? And the best answer I have for you is I'm not going to replace it with anything. I have zero desire to honestly ever own an exotic car again. I like to have a lot of positivity on this channel, but it was horrible. I'm not gonna lie. Owning this car was really from day one absolutely horrible. So I think I portrayed a little bit of a different energy, a little bit of a lot of positive energy on the channel as opposed to what this video is going to be. So even from day one when I first pick up the car, I get to the dealership and the thing doesn't start, right? Like the battery's dead, the thing doesn't start. The mirror is loose from the windshield, sitting in the passenger seat. And I get the battery replaced and the car starts, but it's misfiring heavily, and I have to drive it back from Fort Lauderdale to Virginia, and it's 1,000 miles, right? Catalytic converters are becoming clogged as I drive it, right? The car is going into limp mode. Absolutely horrible experience. It's blowing smoke out of the tailpipes like it's going out of style, like I'm in a James Bond movie. Really, really bad. And when I first started making these videos, I did a video on how to change out your spark plugs, and I remember when one of the spark plugs I pulled was completely fouled with oil. It was so fouled that it was like encrusted around the entire spark plug, and I played it off. I was like, oh, that's gross, but in reality, it's like I knew at that time the motor was completely shot, right? Like I spent all this money on this car, and within day one, like the motor was completely shot, right? I also made another video about the carbon ceramic brake rotors, and how the bolts were falling out. And in my drive, I inspected all the brake rotor bolts before I left the dealership. And by the time I got home, one of the rotors had 3 loose fasteners left in it, 3 out of 10. And I tell my wife if we made one emergency brake at all in that time, I think the brake rotor would have had a catastrophic failure. And that's day one. The car could have killed me, right? Really, really horrible shape. Really, really disappointed by that, right? So that's what I went into, and I portrayed it in a little bit of a different light on the channel, and I hope you appreciate that if you've been following the channel for quite a while. So fast forward a year and a half, I decided to completely rebuild the motor, and that took over a year to accomplish. I had so many issues with the Nicosil company that puts cylinder linings on the side of my engine. That I spend $3,000 for this service, and the cylinder walls look great, but I get the engine back and it's in horrible shape. Like every other surface except for the cylinder walls is horrible. Like it was just the worst condition I've ever seen, and I had to spend more money to then recondition that same motor so it would be usable again. And I'm told this thing that I call them up and I'm like, why did you drag my engine across a table? Why are my mains like scratched up to where there's there's metal inside the mains, and I can't even install a main bearing anymore. And I'm told that the motor is junk when it got to him, and it's it's junk now, right? So like what's the problem? Like, you gave me a junk motor and I gave you a junk motor back, and that's the energy that this car brings to people. And $30,000 later, I found an excellent machinist. His name is Rich at TEM Machine Shop, and he feels like the only person that would advocate for me for this car, and appreciate it, and rebuild the motor in a way that the car deserved. But it wasn't cheap. But I spent $30,000 on that rebuild. And all in, I spent $40,000 on this car. When I first went to go rebuild the motor, I thought, okay, I'm going to rebuild the motor like I'm going to hold on to the car for a very long time. And a year later goes by, right? And these horrible experiences keep on piling on top of each other, on top of each other, on top of each other. Where by the time I get the motor back in the car, I don't want the car anymore. I don't. And the new owner really lucked out because he won at my expense. He really did. And he got this amazing car and this amazing motor at my expense. And it was also really insulting because, this isn't the buyer's fault. It's my own ignorance, but I bought the car for $100,000 and I can only sell it for $90,000. And that's really insulting, right? That's really insulting that I put $40,000 into this car, and the car is completely, basically rebuilt, right, from the ground up, and I get less money for it, right? So I'm in the hole $50,000 on this car, and I've put about 2,000 miles on it in my ownership experience. The first 1,000 miles were the first day I drove it, right? It's been a horrible experience, and I have a lot of emotion behind that. I have a lot of resentment behind that, but I think it really taught me a lesson. And owning this car was like a dream of mine for so long. It was I have this book, like this journal, where I think I wrote in it when I was like 7 years old, and it says, like, when I grow up I want to own a Lamborghini. And I finally achieved that dream, but it was the exact opposite of what I could even imagine. And it was just so horrible in every single distinct way, to where I build my whole entire life around this dream of mine, right? And then to finally have it, and then to just really get slapped in the face with it, it really made me realize that it's just not for me, right? It's such a joke, right? Like, I feel like these last 10 years have been me just owning an Audi of some variety, and then fixing it up, and it's always being broken, and the parts just get more and more and more expensive, right? And now it's a Lamborghini part, and it's more and more and more expensive, where each gasket is like $1,000, each hose is $1,000. And I'm not saying that I can't afford it, but do I really want to afford it? Do I really want to, like, spin my wheels and waste my life to continually repair a car that just does nothing but, like, piss me off, right? And it just came to this head where I physically just can't own this car anymore. And that's really tough, because it makes me feel like I have to realign my whole entire life around this, right? Like, I have to figure out, okay, my dream came true, right? Now what? What do I do with my life? And that's really hard, right? That's really hard to try and figure out. I really feel like these last 10 years have been like just a blur, right? Like, I worked so hard to first buy this car, and then rebuild it, And that time is time, and I'm not going to get back. The time working is the time I'm not going to get back. I'd rather have that money, that $50,000 that I lost in stocks, right? I'd rather live in Italy for a year. I'd rather take my wife out to dinner 10,000 times, right? Or whatever, right? Maybe I can't find a dinner for $6, $5, whatever. But you get the idea. It's all this work with zero reward, and that's what really it feels like owning one of these cars. And I feel like a lot of us, we really put a lot of our identity and a lot of our value hierarchy into these cars, and it's pervasive throughout the entire industry. If you don't have the nicest car, if you don't have the GT3 RS Weissach package edition, or the Gallardo Superleggera, but it's the wrong color, so it's not that rare. Or if you don't have the Huracan Performante or the Huracan STO or the Aventador SVJ, you're worthless, right? Like you can't just enjoy a Miata. You can't just enjoy something for what it is, right? And I'm sitting in my base Model 3, and people will probably ask, oh, why don't you have the Performante? Or excuse me, I call it Performante. Why don't you have the Performance Model 3? I'm like, I don't need it. I like my rear-wheel drive base Model 3, and that's perfect for me. And I'm working really hard to try and remove that identity of cars of myself, right? I'm trying to figure out what is life really worth, once you remove this thing that you're sold constantly. And I looked at the new advertisement for that new V8 Lamborghini that came out, and they advertise it in a way where it's like, I'll link it in the description. They advertise it in a way where it's like, you are empty without owning this car. Like, you can't express yourself and you can't be yourself without owning this very specific car and having everyone else know that you own this very specific car. And it's just kind of like our whole entire society is set up in that way, where we have to parrot out like our own beliefs onto everyone. Like, oh, look at me, I have a Lamborghini, I'm worth something, I'm valuable, I value myself. And that's just ridiculous, right? It's all external validation seeking, and it's just empty. And that's really hard for me. It's still really hard. And I'm just totally sick of it. So I know a lot of you either own a Lamborghini, or, own a Gallardo. That's what this channel's for, to help you with your Gallardo, or you're considering buying one, or a McLaren, or whatever it is. But really tread carefully, because there's a lot more things in life that are a lot more valuable, and they're not based around cars. They're not based around things that you can purchase, right? Because it's so transient. It's so limited of an experience. You buy something, you're happy for a second, and then you're back at your baseline. And that's life. But we're told our entire life that we have to obtain this higher level. And I guess my response to that is you just slow down and look at the birds. Like, I'm looking at one right now, right? Look at the ducks in the pond next to me. Just chill out and stop trying to fill this void, because I think that's what I did. And I rather spend time with my dog, and I rather spend time with my wife, and I rather enjoy my life in a way where my whole entire identity isn't wrapped up in this car. And I'm asked, just to bring it full circle, like, I'm asked, like, what am I going to replace my Lamborghini with? And it's nothing. I'm not going to replace it with anything. And that brings me a lot of anxiety. It brings me a lot of it feels like a large part of my identity is gone, and I have to figure out like what that is now, right? Like, what is my life worth now? And I'm grateful I'm approaching this at this point in my life, but tread carefully. And we're only given so long in our life where we can do the things that we want. Like we can go out and hike up a mountain, or we can go out and just read a book at a coffee shop, because there's going to be a time in our life where you're bound to your home, and you don't have the physical ability to do that, right? And I think that that's at least where I am directioning towards, right? And it's going to be more people than things. So I know this is a little bit of a different video than probably what you're used to on the channel, and I don't think I'm going to make any more videos after this one. I do think I'll make another channel, or maybe revamp this one into something else. But I just want to say, I appreciate all your support. If you've been watching the channel for a while, I hope that my videos have helped you. And yeah, thank you for all your support. And I just can't do it anymore. And that's really all it comes down to. But thanks, and have a nice day.